You know, remember when I said I had a change of heart for Griffin the Brush Off? I've seen this episode recently. I still don't like it. For multiple reasons. Hello guys, I'm Keen947, aka Wolfkeen, and welcome to another edition of my My Little Pony Vlogs. Today, I am talking about Boast, written by Chris Savino, if I'm saying his name correctly. Boast has been panded by the fandom as one of the worst episodes of Season 1, and I'm here to say that is exactly the truth. Shit. I know this is completely unprofessional, but my laptop's about to die. Should have plugged this in before I started recording, but whatever. There we go, it's good. Boastbusters has been pandered by the fandom as one of the worst episodes of Season 1, and I have to agree on that statement because it has a lot of elements that I just don't care for, and it has a lot of elements that don't work. One of these elements is definitely the way the main six act in this episode. Okay, let's get into the first thing. I can't get into this episode without talking about the episode's side character that gets some shine, the great and powerful Trixie. A lot of people hate Trixie for her speech patterns, her boasting, and other stuff like that. I don't. I honestly don't hate Trixie. I actually like Trixie in many respects. Now, don't get me wrong. I know what you're about to say. Oh, you're one of those people. No. I like Trixie because of her speech pattern, and I actually do like her personality at times, and I like her role as a foil. Let me explain this. I am a huge fan of people who speak in third person. Like, I don't know why, but I'm a huge fan of people who speak in the third person. Like, it's really weird, and it actually sounds great. Like, I don't know many shows that do that anymore, but the third person speaking was one of my favorite things when I was growing up, because you would hear, like, other stuff like that, like, the third person speaking. I don't know many shows that do that anymore, and I don't remember any from my childhood, but the third person is one of my favorite things about it. Trixie is a foil. I definitely like that she's basically like Twilight, but in reverse. Like, in the beginning of the episode, we see Twilight practicing magic, and we see that she knows quite a bit about magic. Trixie is kind of like the opposite of Twilight in many cases, if you think about it. Trixie is kind of like what would happen if you let your magical ability get to your head in some instances. While Twilight is kind of reserved with her magic in some cases, but she's too reserved. Like, honestly. There's a difference between showing off and defending your friends. I mean, that's the problem with this episode. It just feels so boring at times. Okay, let me explain. Trixie rolls into town in her car wanting to do a show, and the main six are, well, actually there are only a few of the main six. I think there's only Rarity, Applejack, and Rainbow Dash in this one, as well as Twilight. I don't think Pinkie Pie or Fluttershy was in this one. I think Pinkie Pie was a background pony in this episode, if I'm not mistaken. They begin calling Trixie out on her boasting and her show-offness, and I'm like, really, guys? Really? You're gonna do that? Like, I hate to say this, but it's a show. That's her job. Her job as a show pony is to show off her ability and to impress the masses. Why are you gonna call her out for such statements like that? Like, honestly. And yes, some show people have overblown their stages and stuff like that. Like, come on. Nobody is going to be interested in your show if you don't put some razzle-dazzle on it, some overblowingness and some exaggerations. Come on. How many shows you went to because they kind of exaggerated in some situations? And don't lie. And finally, the one thing I like about Trixie is that she's one of the few, I guess we could call her an antagonist in this episode, at least for the first part, that actually is able to handle the main six. I mean, think about it. Every other antagonist in My Little Pony has been able to take on the main six, but that's because they've had some kind of magical ability and are a different race and stuff like that. Trixie is a pony, and she's able to handle the main six mad easily. Don't believe me? Applejack tries to outshow her with rope. Trixie freaking ties her ass up and puts an apple in her mouth reminiscent of a pig. Rainbow Dash tries to show off her ability. Trixie freaking does a rainbow tornado to Rainbow Dash and then does like lightning to her. And then finally got Rarity, who does, like, takes, like, these curtains and makes a dress out of them, which I don't know how she did that. And then Trixie decides, I can make you look worse. Boom, you got green hair. And I'm like, like, this is perfect. Like, honestly, this is how you manipulate someone against their ability. And there's plenty of people who can do that. This is why I like Trixie, because, she's not, like, she's able to manipulate her opposition against them, like, their ability against them, and that was what made her a lot more better in many situations. But I've had enough talking about Trixie. My problem is that the main six are completely unlikable in this episode. They're calling Trixie out on her show-offiness and other stuff like that. My question is this: Twilight, you know what they're doing. Why aren't you calling your friends out on this? You're calling Spike out on it in some instances, but you're not calling your friends out on it. I mean, if these were my friends calling, a show worker, out for being a show-off and stuff like that, I'd be like, guys, shut up! Because honestly, they're not helping in the situation. And honestly, I don't know what to say, but honestly, I don't think they're being in the right, because that's their job. They're a show person. Get me? Trixie's a show pony, so it's her job to show off her ability. Is that really so bad? And then, of course, this episode added the two most annoying characters we've seen in MLP history, Snips and Snails. God almighty, do I hate these characters. I hate them almost as much as Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon, and that's saying a lot. Because everyone, well, probably a few of you, know my hatred towards Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. I know Voice of Reason has this belief that Silver Spoon's probably just a follower. I do have some belief in that as well. But until that day comes, they share the same hatred to me. But I really don't like Snips and Snails. They're followers to whoever's more powerful and other stuff like that. And they're just completely idiotic. That's the problem. They're completely idiotic in many situations. So what happens is that after Trixie shows them up and Twilight refuses to defend her friends. I mean, come on, Twilight. Showing off your magical ability is not showing off. It's defending. There's a difference. And so basically, Twilight is at war with herself, basically saying, like, if I show off my ability with magic, my friends will castrate me for showing off my magic. I'm like, what? Why? Those are your friends. Honestly, those are your friends. If they get upset with you because you have ability in magic, just to defend them or something like that, just... why? It's like if I showed off my video game skills to one of my friends, they'd be like, oh, you... like, like that. Like, they go against me. I'd be like, why? Why? So basically what happens at one point is that Trixie talks about this being called an Ursa Major that she stopped, and Spike tries to talk to Snips and Snails. And apparently they're believing this story that Trixie talked about defeating an Ursa Major. Spike uses some logic to actually tell them that, have you ever seen it? Then why are you believing it? I have to agree with Spike. I'm in the notion of seeing is believing. So yeah. And so Snips and Snails have the brilliant idea of going to find an Ursa Major. They go to the Everfree Forest by themselves. Remember, these are kids. Snips and Snails are kids. They're in elementary school, more or less. And they go to the Everfree Forest, which is the most dangerous place in Equestria, to find an Ursa Major, which they do, and they bring it back to Ponyville just so Trixie can defeat it. That is the stupid... ugh. They did that just so they can see it and just so they can believe it. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's really stupid. It's really stupid. And then, of course, Trixie tries to take on the Ursa Major with her ability, and of course, she can't do it. I mean, yes, Trixie has some okay ability in magic, but she has nothing spectacular. That's being honest. And she even said it herself that she made up the story about defeating an Ursa Major, and she said no one can do it. So now Twilight is up, and we actually get some very good visuals here, where Twilight is using different degrees of magic trying to take down this Ursa Major. She ends up causing these leaves to whistle. You know how you have, like, leaf whistling? She does that to soothe it. She ends up taking the water tower, which, thanks, Twilight, we needed that, to make a milk tower just so she can give him a bottle and just so she can carry him away into the Everfree Forest. And then we find out that this Ursa Major that came into town was an Ursa Minor, and yada yada yada. We get the exposition of the Ursa Major and yada yada yada. Trixie pretty much leaves town afterwards, and Snips and Snails gets their punishment, which is given mustaches. You bring a powerful and very deadly creature into Ponyville that destroys basically part of it, and their punishment is mustaches. This episode fails in many aspects. There were a lot of bad decisions in this episode. Granted, the visuals are really good in this episode, and Trixie is a really good character, but everything else is horrible. Like, the main six are completely unlikable and are complete idiots at times. The story is just completely stupid in many cases. And honestly, the punishment that Snips and Snails gets for what they did is it's ungodly. This episode is one of the worst episodes of season 1. I mean, I can honestly agree with this statement. It's one of the worst episodes of season 1. I freaking hate this episode. Trixie and the visuals were the only saving grace of this episode. If that wasn't there, this episode would be nothing. This thing would have nothing redeemable. Absolutely nothing. Definitely one of the worst episodes I've seen in my life, and I really don't like it. If you like this episode, fine. But I can't, for the love of me, like this for so many bad decisions that were made. Well, anyways, guys, I want to get away from this episode now. I want to stop talking about this before I go into freaking shock or give myself a headache. So, until next time, guys, I'm Keen947, aka Wolfkeen, and I'll see you all for the next My Little Pony vlog. So, until next time, take care.